like to call the meeting to order. You'd all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So because we have a board member joining us on Zoom tonight, we will need to do a roll call. So go ahead, Jay.
So very quickly, Dave G.
Here.
Jade.
Here.
Annie, I believe is absent, not online. Dane.
Here.
Tyler.
Here.
Yeah, online. And Christine.
Here.
Kathy.
Here.
Patty, I believe is absent, just double checking. Rebecca.
Here.
Betty.
Here.
Sean is absent as well. He'd let us know. Kelty, absent as well. David T. Here. Eric is also, he had let us know he was absent tonight. And Esme.
Here.
Awesome. So because we do have a board member online, all votes will be taken through roll call tonight. So when we get to the voting section, it'll be roll call.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming tonight. Before we get started, I just want to remind everyone of our agreed upon core values, and those are integrity, perseverance, family, respect, collaboration, and trust. These values support our RSU school district mission of being a caring school community dedicated to excellence, and also support our vision of being safe, dynamic learning communities where people of all ages will think, aspire, and participate as responsible citizens in an ever-changing global society. So this business workshop meeting is being held in person, as you know, and on Zoom. So the first thing on our agenda tonight are student representative reports. So middle school, would you like to start? We have Bo, is that right? Carter. Sorry about that.
Someday we're going to get that.
We'll get this right. Carter and okay. I write it down every time, but I never remember.
Hello. Moose has recently welcomed a new teacher on team and has said goodbye, sadly, to Miss Talberday, who has moved up to the high school. That's you're probably aware of. In the new unit, they are talking about conflict and resolutions. That has to do with the Holocaust, the Civil War, and on the side, a little bit of biology and how injuries are healing. And are working on new book groups.
Hi, so I'm Carter. So the first people I will be talking about is the Acadia team. So on 6th grade Acadia math, they've been using number line to solve real world problems. They had just figured out how fast the International Space Station was orbiting around Earth. So the 7th graders are learning about circles and what they're made up of, like radius, diameter, circumference, all that. Using this knowledge, they determined that the Earth's orbit around the sun cannot be a perfect circle. And the 8th graders have been working on the y equals mx plus b equation and other slope-related formulas. On student government, they've been sponsoring a winter-themed door decorating contest. In this challenge, the advisory groups are going to be working to decorate their advisory room door with stuff like winter decorations, Hanukkah decorations, Christmas decorations. They're holding a ugly and funny sweater contest on December 20th. And then on the last day of vacation, or before vacation, students can dress like their favorite holiday movie character. Then on Sebago, they're finishing up their Maine studies by creating slideshows, commercials, and pamphlets to convince people to move to Maine. They're also making ornaments that are going to be given out with the holiday food baskets from the MCMS food pantry. Then they've also been working, building and wood burning during project time, as well as other hand-on projects. So going back to Acadia, I hadn't talked about their ELA nor their core classes. So on the Acadia ELA, they have been reading Christmas books like A Christmas Carol, and they're going to be doing readers theater. Then they have also just finished up their narrative unit. I believe they're going to expository next. So in Mr. Holman's core classes, we had just finished a trimester by racing our mousetrap cars. I had meant to bring one, but I wasn't able to do that. The farthest went almost 40 feet. So with the new trimester, we're learning about plagues throughout history and the American Revolution, as well as the philosophers and philosophy behind it, like Hobbes and Locke. Then because we have a missing kid, I'm going to be talking about sports. So the girls and boys basketball, they both have a game today. So far, the girls are undefeated, and the boys had one loss at the very start of their season, but so far have dominated in every other game. Nordic had just started their season. They're doing dry land training, and Alpine doesn't start until there's more snow on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Carter.
Moxie Falls is doing natural disasters for the new unit, and also narrative reading and writing. They're going to use these to help answer important questions about natural disasters, like how they're caused, how it affects other people, and what they are. World language, unfortunately, I only have 2 of them. Spanish is learning about Spanish-speaking countries and doing geography in Spanish with math activities. German is reviewing the World Cup where Germany played, and are planning to continue learning about taking and giving orders in restaurants. They are planning a party for St. Nicholas Day. Royal for the new trimester has the theme of crime, safety, and relationships, and are planning on probably doing a couple narrative or reading and writing activities.
Thank you, Taylor. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Carter or Taylor?
It's so good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have the high school, Abby. I remembered one name anyway, and I can't remember the other one.
Taylor.
Taylor. Well, it should be easy, 2 Taylors. Okay, you're on.
Hi, I'm Abigail. So in council, we've mainly just been finalizing a lot of our projects that we had going on at the beginning of the year and starting up some new projects. In Student Voice, the Student Voice Committee has teamed up with Spirit to do a winter sports kickoff assembly. And Student Voice will also begin working on the Eurosphere, which is our dance that we usually do in January. Student Wellness is working on a new fundraising project called Monday Morning Munchies. Spirit is doing the winter sports rally combined with Student Voice, where there's going to be games, shout outs, and student and staff recognition. Outreach, with the holiday season coming up, Outreach has been working with advisory groups to collect Christmas gifts for kids in need in the area, and they're doing this through the Hope Baptist Church in Manchester. And then another really important conversation that went down in council a couple weeks ago was discussing how students felt about the bathrooms at the high school, because there's been a lot of attention brought to comfortability levels of the bathrooms, and we've kind of come to consensus that kids are feeling a little bit more uncomfortable with how they're not really up to date.
Boys basketball has had a good start to their season, and they have had a few scrimmages and are working hard at practices. In girls basketball, they had their first scrimmage and tied Lewiston and lost once and won their 2 other scrimmages. So far, it's going very well, and the girls are enjoying the season. Both Alpine and Nordic are having a great start to the season. Since there isn't any snow, they've mainly been working on preseason and doing dryland activities. Marinicook has joined the Winslow Gardner Girls Hockey Co-op. Their season has so far been successful in the last couple of weeks. Theater had an extremely successful production of Once Upon a Mattress, and they're getting ready for the auditions for the spring play soon. The National Honor Society induction ceremony is tomorrow night, and this is the first one in a couple of years because of COVID, and students will be inducted into the National Honor Society. The music department will be having their winter concert soon. For the instrumental section, it will be January 12th, and the vocal concert will be on December 13th. This is the first winter concert since 2020.
That's all we have. Does anyone have any questions or comments for the high school reps? Again, thank you very much for that information. It's always great to hear from you. So next on our agenda is citizen comments. I'm not sure if we have anybody that signed up on the sheet in the back. So while somebody's looking for that, I just want to remind folks that in accordance with RSU 38 policy BEDH, public participation at school board meetings, the following guidelines will be followed. This is number 4 on tonight's agenda. For those attending by Zoom, you will notice that the microphones are muted except during the identified portions of public comment. This is number 4, which we're on right now. If you are viewing on Zoom and would like to speak during the public comment times, please use the chat feature to notify Diane McGregor and she will communicate with me. In-person speakers, please sign up on the sheet on the clipboard, which we have that. All speakers, please identify yourself with first and last name and the town you live in. Priority will be given to individuals who live or pay taxes in our member communities, immediate family members of enrolled students, and employees of RSU 38. Individuals that do not have one of these direct connections to our district may or may not be given permission to speak at the discretion of the board chair. We ask that speakers limit their comments to 3 minutes, and if someone who has a similar view of yours speaks ahead of you, please reference their comment rather than repeat the same ideas. We really want to hear from all of our stakeholders, and we ask that you be respectful with your constructive comments to the board. I would also like to clarify how we address concerns of the public. In accordance with RSU policy BEDH, we welcome all respectful comments and concerns, and we ask that you not use any derogatory comments or use names or identifying comments of any district personnel. We cannot discuss specific personnel matters in the public setting, but we can listen to broad concerns that folks may have. All speakers are to address the chair and direct questions or comments to particular board members only with approval of the chair. The board will hear and record comments and questions, but will not debate any matters at this meeting. Board members' questions must be addressed through the chair. Following the meeting, we do take time to research and gather information on the issues that have been brought up. And at the next board meeting, we will follow up with information on those issues. And you are also, as the public, always encouraged to call the superintendent at any time with issues and concerns. So we do have one person that signed up. So Mary Ann Libby, would you like to speak now, or do you want to wait till the topic that you're here for? It's going to be at the end, so I just wanted to give you a chance now if you wanted to, but you want to wait. Okay, thank you. And we also have another resident that would like to give us a presentation tonight. So I would like to welcome Cristobal Alvarado. And I want to remind the board that this is an informational presentation, so we're not going to debate any of the issues. If we have questions, you'll address them to either me or Jay, and we will research those questions and come back with the answers. If you need a clarifying, but we're not going to do any debate. We're just here to hear the information that he has to offer us. We thank you for coming, Mr. Alvarado, and you're on.
Is this, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay.
You're good.
While they're fiddling with the screen, thank you for that. I did bring some slides. Hopefully that'll be informational for people. But the reason I wanted to speak today, a couple of weeks back, I guess like most of the parents here, my name's Chris Alvarado. As I said, I have a home in Reedfield, 4 kids, 2 of them who graduated from the high school here. My youngest child is an 8th grader. And we received a package at home about a pop-up vaccine clinic that's being offered. And I think it's tomorrow, if I'm not incorrect, on the 8th. And, you know, it really alarmed me, frustrated me, it angered me actually, because the forms that came along with that email purported to give informed consent for these boosters. And the frequent asked questions, the document that was sent, apparently endorsed by Maine General, was riddled with scientific and medical error. And to purport that document as being an adequate informed consent is just reckless and completely deficient. And I want to start off by just reminding people how incredibly important informed consent is. You know, after the atrocities in World War II, the Nuremberg trials convened, and out of that trial that convicted people for crimes against humanity, and some of those people convicted and executed were physicians and nurses who participated in these crimes, because it came out with the fundamental principle: you cannot make somebody do something that's a medical procedure. And that's true whether it's a heart bypass or whether it's a vaccination. And I think in order to get truly informed consent for any medical procedure, every physician who does the procedure is obliged, has a duty to discuss the risks, the benefits, and the alternative treatments if they're available. And so I just want to go through that now and answer some of those flagrant errors in the frequently asked questions document with some of the medical evidence that's uncontroversial and not disputed anymore. So can I have the next slide? The first thing I want to bring up, and I think this is important for people to understand, this is a graph that was culled from about 50,000 pages of internal documents submitted by Pfizer, which they tried to keep hidden from the general public for 75 years until a federal district court judge said, no, you have to supply this information. This is incredibly important for the public interest. And in the very first drop of 50,000 pages, this graph was produced, which shows all of the adverse reactions that were reported to Pfizer from vaccine administrations just in the first 3 months. And it's a little small. You can't necessarily see the y-axis, but the y-axis is in the thousands. You know, and this represents a broad range of adverse events. And the reason I post this is the very first question on the FAQ document said, is there any risk? And I wish I had it printed out in front of me, but it gives, first of all, it speaks in a way that no scientist or doctor speaks. It's a propaganda document that's written by public relations people, because it says very clearly, yes, with no qualifications. And nobody ever says that in medicine. There's never an absolute in medicine. And when you say that there's no risk and there's no side effects to my kids, and you assure parents with a document provided and signed with the trademark of the hospital that says it's completely safe, ignoring information like this, and next slide, please. Here's listed out all of the different complications reported to the FDA with numbers and deaths. Next slide, please. Putting that graphically, because I think sometimes this makes an impression on people. If you take all of those rates and all of those rates of adverse events, and then you calculate how many hospitalizations are saved by the vaccine, the number of hospitalizations saved are in green, and the adverse events are in red. Now, you don't even have to look at the numbers to know that's a tremendous difference. And I'm not even saying, you know, somebody can make a decision for their child. I want my child to be fine, no problem. But at least you have to have the proper information. And the information that was dispensed under the authority of this school board and this school district to parents in this community was that this was a safe vaccine, and it is not. Next slide, please. One thing that's coming up is the idea of excess deaths caused by these vaccines. And it turns out that you can predict very well what death rate should be in a population. Insurance companies make a lot of money doing that. It's a very well-defined baseline. And when there's a huge deflection from that baseline, it at least bears scrutiny and investigation, instead of saying to parents, no, this is perfectly fine. Next slide, please. This is a little bit complicated, but this is actually a very, very important slide to understand. This comes from data from the United Kingdom, from their entire population, culled by the National Health Service over there, which is their one health service for the entire country of Great Britain. And he breaks it down into people who are unvaccinated all the way to the left, going all the way out to people who are 3 times vaccinated all the way to the right. Once again, you can see the tremendous difference, right? These are deaths and adverse events following vaccination. If the vaccines work, why are we having so many adverse events afterward? And in fact, if you look at the yellow bars, you know that unvaccinated, once vaccinated, twice vaccinated, the yellow bars which is the leftmost bar of each group, is almost zero. And then once you get 3 times vaccinated, then you start having more deaths from COVID. I mean, that should tell anybody with common sense and not even a medical or scientific background that the vaccines are causing problems. Next slide, please. In general, another thing we have to remember, the clinical trials that Pfizer tried to hide all the information from and went to court to hide for 75 years was based on a trial that excluded pregnant women, excluded children, excluded anybody with a known autoinflammatory disease like diabetes or rheumatoid arthritis. So how can you possibly say that something is safe for a child when children weren't even in the original trials? I mean, it's logically dumb. And it also ignores the fact that for new technologies like messenger RNA vaccines, which have a possibility of inserting into the germline and causing all sorts of other problems that we've never even encountered before, we have no data about what's going to happen 20 years from now. And we have all sorts of episodes in the recent medical history of drugs that were approved by the FDA. One is diethylstilbestrol. I encourage anybody to look this up on the internet. DES, diethylstilbestrol, given to patients in the 40s and 50s. And it turns out their granddaughters had cancers because of that drug given to their grandparents. So I mean, we have to be very respectful and humble about the things that medications can do. And we have to at least do tests on them. But I mean, how can we rush out a vaccine to give to our children when it hasn't even been really rigorously tested? And the testing that's done has showed a lot of adverse events. So that's risk. Let's talk really quickly about benefit. Someone would say, well, you know, this is a horrible disease. We have to protect our kids. They're going to die otherwise. Next slide, please. So actually, this is the CDC's data from this country. This is the survival rate for people 0 to 19. In fact, in the state of Maine, to my understanding, there's still not been a single pediatric death from COVID. Next slide, please. This is a little more complicated, but I want to put this up because I think, once again, this is a very important slide. If you'll note, the y-axis is on a logarithmic scale. So it goes from 1/10 to 100th to 1,000th to 100,000 to 1 millionth, right? And you can see the steep decline and the age specificity with regards to how you were adversely affected by COVID. Notice in the lower left-hand corner, once again, this is population data from the United Kingdom, from Great Britain. 12 million people under the age of 19, 25 deaths. That's 1 in 500,000. And if you break that out further, the 25 deaths, and I'll get to this later, people who are vitamin D deficient overwhelmingly and obese overwhelmingly. Next slide, please. I think this is the most important slide that I can show you, and I'd really like people to internalize this. This is data from the CDC taken from a county in Wisconsin in the fall of 2020, when we were at the height of contact tracing and testing, and we didn't have a vaccine yet. And so they calculated all the cases in that county over the course of 3 or 4 months or so, and they attributed them either to the community or to the school, and you can see the flagrant difference, right? That huge line going up, that's in the community. The one that's literally almost zero right along the y-axis, that's the number of COVID cases that can be attributed to having been caught in school. And there's a very good reason to believe that, right? We know from the data that kids are effectively immune and really aren't harmed by the virus. And I think it's also important, next slide, to give people a reason why this is true. And if you'll indulge me just for a couple more minutes, I want to give you an explanation that I think will stick with people and reassure you that our children are safe. This is a 3-dimensional graphical image of the amino acid backbone of the coronavirus. Next slide, please. This is a space filling model that shows a number of the inserts into that, clearly are evidence of genetic manipulation. I think that it's very clear amongst people who have studied this now that this was genetically engineered in a lab. And one of the things that was genetically engineered, and one of the reasons that it's a smoking gun, if you will, for that, is what's labeled FCS, the furin cleavage site. Furin cleavage sites do not occur naturally in coronaviruses. The fact that it's in this coronavirus is smoking gun evidence of genetic manipulation. But the other thing that's very important about that is that is what confers the quote unquote gain of function. A normal coronavirus, let's say it can infect a human cell with an activity of 1. If you insert a furin cleavage site, it can infect a human cell with a factor of 1,000, even 10,000. Much, much, much more effective at infection, which is why it caused such a problem. But thankfully, adults, and certainly old adults, elderly people, have a much different representation of what the furin cleavage site binds to, which is something called the angiotensin converting enzyme type 2 receptor, the ACE2 receptor. In adults, it binds extremely easily, but in kids, it doesn't bind at all, either because maybe kids don't have enough, maybe it's immature. We don't really know exactly why. It's never a one-to-one relationship, but we know that it's not effective. And so that in and of itself should allow all of us to rest easily at night saying, you know, our kids really do have a natural advantage when it comes to this, on top of having, next slide, please, much more powerful immune systems. And this was a study that was done about the T cell response to COVID, which is really what we should be focusing on. And it shows very clearly that even in a vaccinated individual, the T cell response is negligible compared to somebody who's been exposed to the virus and has recovered, as almost every single child in the state of Maine already has, as we know from seroprevalence studies. Next slide, please. I think this went by the boards a little bit. I'm surprised that the school board didn't trumpet this. This is actually from the CDC in August of this year with their new guidelines, that there should be no difference between a vaccinated and unvaccinated person. There's no reason to treat anybody differently. Once again, this is from the CDC. Next slide, please. And lastly, you know, I had a mentor who always say, you can't complain unless you offer a suggestion. And so one suggestion I would like to offer is the fact that, you know, maybe instead of giving boosters, maybe one thing we should do that would really help our kids is make sure they're all vitamin D repleted. And maybe give people a choice and say, you know, we'll give you a booster, but we'll also check your vitamin D level. And it's your choice, up to the parents, you know, whichever one you think is going to help. But I give you this slide to show you a meta-analysis, which is the top of the evidence pyramid. This is multiple randomized controlled styles pulled out and look specifically at very specific variables, in this case, vitamin D, and showing by a multiple regression analysis that at a level of vitamin D greater than 50, mortality is theoretically 0. And in fact, if you look at the world literature, there's never been somebody who's died of COVID with a vitamin D level of greater than 50. Now, I mean, is that a one-to-one thing? Can I say it's ironclad? Of course not. No scientist would ever say that. But what I'm saying is it certainly bears discussion. And when this school board, representing the parents of this community and on behalf of this school district, sends out such an irresponsible, reckless, error-laden, frequently asked questions document and purports to represent that as informing the community and allowing the parents to get informed consent for their children, that's just wrong. It's just wrong. What I say tonight may not change anything, but at least I want it on film. And I want to be able to say a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, every single person on the school board heard this and they heard this information and they went ahead with it anyway. And you're perfectly within your rights to do that. I think that would be a horrible decision. I think it would harm our kids. Next slide. I mean, I also want to ask, how did we ever get here? Who authorized this? I've been to these school board meetings. I looked at the minutes. I don't recall any discussion in the broad community. We're going to have a pop-up clinic. The best I can put together, there was a subcommittee that met on its own, outside of public view, without any minutes, without any votes recorded, who recommended this. Then this was accepted. And then whatever that subcommittee was also said, this frequently asked questions document is fine. We have no problem. We'll stand behind that. I think there's liability there. And I want to find out exactly how this was authorized. Who are the physicians at Maine General who are standing behind that document, because it's wrong. And I will speak to them and challenge them on a scientific basis, being a retired physician. But I think every parent in this community should be furious. I think we've been misled. We're finding out more and more how much we were lied to. This vaccine is dangerous for children. The countries of Israel, Germany, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark have banned the administration of boosters to people under the age of 50. If this school board wants to go against that, knock yourselves out, but be accountable for it. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. We do appreciate it. So if anyone on the board has any questions, you can just send them to one of us to, hopefully we can take a look at them and see what we can find out. Thank you. Thank you again. Are there any additions or adjustments to the agenda by the board or by the superintendent?
I don't have it.
Okay. So next on our agenda is a celebration. I think Mrs. Delmar, if you have something to celebrate.
Hey, everybody. Just really quickly, at Mount Vernon, and I know across all our schools here in Maranacook, we work on teaching and developing the full child. And by teaching students basically kindness, we instruct, model, and practice in that. And, you know, we instruct and model, practice kind words, kind actions, and how to recognize kindness in others. And when we do that, teaching gratitude and thankfulness. So this past month at Mount Vernon, we spent a lot of time talking about the gift of kindness. It's free, give it away. And when you do that, the giver and the receiver feel great. And one of the things we did, and it's in the board report, is very simple. I didn't really think it'd be a big deal, but it was maybe one of the most impactful things that we've done in my 9 years principal there, is just a slip of paper that students and kids from kindergarten to 5th grade could fill out who they're thankful to, a friend, a teacher, and why. Simple things like kids would come up to me and say, it's my turn to announce it. And they'd come into the office and we'd have a line every morning before for the announcements and at the end of the day. And like I said, kids kindergarten to 5th grade would get on and thank their peers or teachers for things like, you play with me on the playground. You always will sit next to me on the bus. You help me no matter how many times I get something wrong. And I had more teachers come up to me and say, when the students in the classroom heard their names being called by their peers and why, their whole faces just lit up and they were so excited. And I had more staff come to me and say, this is a big deal. Kids are really happy about it. And so we put them on a bulletin board. And then the MPA, the Maine Principals Association, has positive stories that people can share with them. And they selected Mount Vernon's positive story to post, and they put it on their website, on their Facebook page, and they put it out on Twitter. So I'm just really happy that a simple little thing of showing kindness and gratitude is shared with all our Maine schools. And we have amazing kids and families and staff and schools here in RSU 38, and I'm just really proud of that. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you for sharing that with us. That was really awesome. So does anyone have any questions or comments on any of the reports that were in our packet? I have one comment. It's actually on your report. Jay and I went to the CATSI advisory board meeting last week, and we talked about some different things that are going on at CATSI and how they're looking at trying to increase their recruiting and enrollment at CATSI. And we talked about how to maybe diminish some of the barriers that our students have that make them so they can't go to CATSI. So it was a really good discussion. So after that, I had a sort of like a personal reason to talk to the director at CATSI. And I'll tell you what it was. It was because we need a new shed at the Mount Vernon dump. So I talked to the director of CATSI and I said, is there any way that we can get the building construction program at CATSI to build the shed for us? He said, well, let's look into it. So the very next day, the instructor contacted me and said, yes, come and visit us. So I got the selectman and I went to CATSI and visited the building construction program. And all of that really doesn't matter. But what I'm going to say now really matters. And it really mattered to me. When I was in the classroom, which is like a big shop, I said to the two teachers there, I said, do you have any kids from Maranacook in this program? And they're like, yes, we love the kids from Maranacook. We wish, we only have a few and we wish we had more. We've always loved the kids from Maranacook. They are the most polite students we have ever had and continue to have, and we love them. Keep sending them to us. So it just really touched my heart. So I wanted to make sure I shared that with you because that's part of our community and part of who we are. So I just wanted to share that.
Is it okay if I share a little bit
Sure.
on that line too? Just at that meeting, they usually do a lunch for us, and the food service culinary department puts something together and then they serve it, and it's part of like their program and stuff. And it would just so happen that that they were giving us a talk about the program. And again, it was one of our Maranacook students that was giving this talk, and it wasn't just Kathy and I there. The Winthrop principal was there. There was a bunch of different people from RSU2, from Gardner, et cetera, that were all there, from Augusta. And it was just really, it was really special to turn around, and she recognized us and was able to say hi to us, and you could just see that connection. So when Kathy shared that, that's like, we have a really good reputation with our students, and our students do an amazing job. And it's something that we, like Kathy said, would love to see more of our Maranacook students get involved with as they go forward. So it was just a really good experience. That was a really good meeting that day.
And I just want to say thank you to those of you sitting in the audience for being a part of the reason why our students are having such a good reputation. We really appreciate that. So thank you.
And as we said in my report, we had 2 more Maranacook students that were professionals of the month. And that was, again, we had 2 last month, and we had 2 again this month. So we're like 2 for 2 right now. So it's awesome. So.
Any other comments or questions about any of the reports or? Okay. So we have our first readings for the policy committee. So if you have any comments or suggestions on any of those, please let one of us know. Because we meet tomorrow night. So it's kind of a short turnaround. Betty?
On policy BHC DVD, on the last page, just before the additional line was added at the top of the page, that sentence doesn't really make
Oh,
sense.
Yeah, I read it over again and it doesn't make sense. So we'll have to reword that just to make sure it says what we want it to say.
We'll
So,
check our notes again here.
thank you for bringing that up. Anything else? And we do have some upcoming committee meetings scheduled. And again, I want to say that the public and anyone is invited to attend those committee meetings. They're usually held at the superintendent's office and Zoom, so you're welcome to join us or join in on Zoom and hear the discussions that are going on. Okay, let's move on to the action items. Do I have a motion for approval of minutes of November 16 meeting?
Motion to approve the minutes of November 16, 2022 board meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll do the roll call.
David G.
Yes.
Jade.
Yeah.
Dane.
Yes.
Tyler.
Abstain.
Christine.
Yes.
Kathy.
Yes.
Rebecca.
Yes.
Betty.
Yes.
David T.
Yes.
And Esme. And it passes with 2 abstentions.
Okay. So is there a motion to accept the donations as written in our packet?
I move we accept the donations as listed in our packet. Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the donations Are there any discussions? Hearing none? We'll do the roll call.
David G,
Yes.
Jade.
Yeah.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty,
Yes.
Kelty, oh, excuse me, she's absent, David T,
Yes.
and Esme. So it is unanimous.
Okay, is there a motion to consider the out-of-country travel to Germany in the spring of 2023?
I move to consider the out-of-country travel to Germany in the spring of 2023.
Second.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to consider the out-of-country travel to Germany in the spring of 2023. Is there any discussion? Yeah. Would you like to? Oh,
I just want to plug before this happens, as somebody who's been on the trip, I can highly recommend it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Tyler. Go ahead.
I'm Carrie and I just prepare a presentation. Tyler, you might find yourself in some of the photos in the presentation because I came to Maranacook during the pandemic. I haven't had the opportunity to travel yet, though I know Maranacook has a very proud tradition with GAP, the German American Partnership Program. We have some highly motivated students at our school, and I really hope that our communities are supportive of restarting our exchange. So just to give you some information about what this exchange is, we have a partner school in the city of Viersen. The school is called Erasmus von Rotterdam Gymnasium. And we have teachers there, 2 English teachers who coordinate on their end, and then I coordinate on our end. Some of you, maybe if you've been here for a while, have even met them when they were here last, Nicole and Petra. I guess we can go on to the next slide. So this is just a quick agenda of what this presentation is. Sorry about that. We can move on. So GAP, it started in 1972, so it's actually celebrating its 50th anniversary. And it is managed by the Goethe Institute, which is a cultural arm of the German government. There are 765 active school partnerships in the United States and Germany, and over 300,000 students have participated in the program. And the primary mission of this is to administer educational exchanges between the US and Germany to foster positive relations and increase care for both countries and then the wider world. And this is not just about traveling, our exchange program. It's really an exchange. It's really rooted in cultural immersion. We can go on to the next slide. So if you see on the map that, if you can see that little red pin in Western Germany, that's where our partner school is. That's where the city of Viersen is. It's very close to the Netherlands and very close to some larger cities of Cologne and Bonn, Düsseldorf. Here's a photo of our kids there on a previous exchange at their school. Our schools are really excited about this. The whole school will come together on our end here when kids come here and on their end in Germany. Who goes on this exchange? Who are our members? So students are held to high standards to be eligible for GAP. Unless there are extenuating circumstances, students must be enrolled in German 2 or above, and they must be willing to host their German partner in September of 23. Though if they are seniors, they aren't held to that. They don't have to come back from college and, and be with them. This is an ongoing partnership. So we would have younger students step up and host who would then go abroad on the following exchange. And also, if some family circumstances just can't work out, if something happens and a family can't host, we'll find a way. Other families will step up
to be sure that our students are hosted. Students need to be passing all their classes. Students will miss a week of school, and it's important that they can manage when they return. I want to be sure when they're in Germany, they can focus on their time there and they aren't stressed about their bio homework, for example, while they're there, but yet that they have the wherewithal to manage once they come back. And they need to be in good disciplinary standing and demonstrate respect toward others. I want to be sure that students have demonstrated respect because they'll be around a lot of people in another culture, and they'll be ambassadors of our country and school. So this is the proposal which we have that I've made with our partner school. So the proposed trip this spring would be from April 15th to the 30th. So that would be the week of April vacation and then the entire week following. It would begin with 4 days in Salzburg, Austria, and the surrounding area, and then 10 days at our partner school. So the time in and around Salzburg will be exploring the old city and the fortress. There are some really neat historic salt mines, and we'll also take a trip to Dachau in Germany, a concentration camp. This will be time for us to adjust as a group abroad. We'll spend a lot of this time together and just kind of get our feet on the ground there before needing to go into their host families. Then when we're at our partner school, the primary function of that is time with their host families and at school. So students will be in their individual families at night, but we'll all meet at school in the morning. I'll be staying with one of the teachers there. So we'll have check-ins throughout the day at school to be sure people are doing okay. And then we'll also go on day trips with our partner students. As I said, Führen's not too far from Cologne, Bonn, Dusseldorf, really neat stuff to check out there. So that'll be time for our students to get to travel with their German partners. The host family experience is the cornerstone of the program and the reason why strong transatlantic relationships exist. Germany does an amazing job providing educational opportunities, and students will have a leg up to post-secondary to take advantage of educational opportunities at universities in Germany too, or internships. So students will live with their families when they're there, except in Salzburg, we'll be in hostel together. And then German students will live with our families in the fall. Some of the students are already connected with a partner at the school, and if this trip gets full approval, we'll work on already pairing up students together so they can communicate and start to get to know each other before we travel. Students are expected to be regular members of the host family, eat dinner with them, eat breakfast with them, take part in their daily routines, do what the family wants to do on the weekend, for example. And our students really get the real German experience while they're abroad. And many students will form strong partnerships with their new families. So these are just some photos to share. This is Salzburg. It's a beautiful city. It's the birthplace of Mozart. It's in the Alps. There are lots of, there's a fortress on top of that small mountain in the city, if you can see that. So lots of things too. It's a very manageable city too for kids to get used to for their first few days in Europe. And then here's some photos from previous exchanges, students together at school and in the area. Again, you can see how proud our partner school is to have us there. Oh, we can go to the next slide. And then this is the proposal for September. Again, this is a two-way exchange. So the proposal is that our German partners would come here in September. They would spend 2 weeks here and then 1 week on their own traveling. That would be without us. That's something they would organize. And they would probably go to Boston and Plymouth, potentially New York City, depending on their flight plans. Then when they're here, they'll be at school with us. They'll be at school. They will want to go to our football games, our sports games, maybe even practice if their coach allows them. And we would then take some trips. We would, as a group, like the Americans and Germans together, would do a Portland day trip to explore the working waterfront, the Portland Headlight in South Portland, and we would like to go to Acadia National Park together as a group. And then our families here in Maranacook would provide their own experiences as well. So whatever the families care about or what they do, maybe it's time in a canoe or apple picking, hiking. And here are some photos of previous exchanges in Maine on the Maine side. Freeport is usually a popular destination. I can't stress enough the educational benefit of this. I wouldn't be who I am if it weren't for my time living with a family in Germany and working in Germany. I went to graduate school at the University of Salzburg. It's changed my life. And so kids will be immersed in the language and culture. They will learn more about concentration camps and the Holocaust. And how do we move on from that? What are we doing now? They'll learn more about the division of Germany. There's a really awesome museum in Bonn that covers 20th century and 21st century history. We'll learn more about East Germany, West Germany, reunification. We'll go to museums. You can't avoid Mozart if you're in Salzburg, so they'll tap into classical music a little bit more too. They'll have lots of food they've never had before, and they'll really gain independence. They will be very supported. They will also be abroad without their parents. So this is a big step in independence and opportunity to build a lot of confidence. They might make friends for life from another part of the world. And this is really an element of people and people-to-people diplomacy. These sorts of exchanges help make the world a better place. Okay, move on. It's important to me that this be as affordable as possible. I want students who are passionate about being culturally immersed to find a way. These are the estimated costs for this trip. The plane tickets are the biggest cost. $1,200, time in Salzburg, trips from Thiessen, and then insurance and travel and health coverage. So the estimated cost would be $2,000 per person. The GAP program is part of the Awesome Bear Society. So students and families interested in GAP help me run concession stands so we can also get some relief money from ABS. And then if families are interested to help with and lead fundraising opportunities to help lower the cost even more, that's an opportunity. And there is potentially an opportunity to get some grants from GAP. So danke, thank you. And our partner school sent me this brief video. It was made at the end of 2020, so all their students are still masked in the video, but if you'd like to see about a 2.5-minute video to get a picture of the school where our students would be, that might really help you get a sense for what their time there will be like. The students are talking about what they like about their school. A lot of the students and the teachers stressing the open-minded and welcoming atmosphere there. So that's the school. Sorry. A lot of secondary schools. Oh, sure. A lot of secondary schools there in the same building have grades 6 through 12 or about there. So that's why you saw some younger students there too. So there's a broader age range of kids all in the same school building. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take questions.
First of all, thank you for that presentation. I want to go.
Yeah.
David, did you have a question?
No, I was just gonna say it's a wonderful program. I had a brother and sister that went through it in the early 80s, and we're still in touch with both of our German sisters. So this day, so thank you.
Yeah.
It's a great program.
So I have kind of a different question.
Yeah, of course.
Are the host families here and there, are they screened somehow?
They
to
are.
Make sure that it's safe. for
Yeah,
them
that's
to
a
be there?
really good question. And thank you for asking that. So they are screened. They go through a process of just checking the home environment to be sure it feels okay and talking to kids at school too, to be sure that no one has like voiced concerns about anything going on in the home there as well. These sorts of exchanges generally have a higher level of safety and oversight because they're so then like if you just go through an outside organization that might not know the family that well because it is school-based, there's a lot of community care and support built in. And that can also lead to if, for example, something happens in the host family and a student needs to move, it's easier to help find another family within that school community too, since everyone involved is at the same school. But yes, that is a good question. And that's also why it's very important to me, to check in with the students every day too. I will be seeing them every day and asking them, or if on a Saturday, I might not see them, but they'll be able to message me at any time and then to have those check-ins outside of the host family situation too at school to see how they're doing and being sure that they feel safe there. Yeah.
Christine?
So I would just add that my son went through the GAP program here a few years ago, and you do get an opportunity to talk with the parents. We emailed back and forth quite a bit before he went, so you just learn a little bit more about the family and what to expect. It was a fantastic experience for him. Thank you so much for doing the work. I'm really glad that this is continuing at Maranacook. He is actually going to Freiburg, University of Freiburg this spring, and plans to go to Pearson to see his exchange student. It was a really good experience, but I was a little nervous when our student got off the bus. He had on a t-shirt that said #party. And so I thought, that's our guy?
Yeah.
It was great. Thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
I'll just,
So if you want to bring Dorothy to talk
Okay,
about.
we're gonna vote on.
Oh,
But
okay.
there's.
They are
Yeah.
separate. Okay, good. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So we will take a vote on the consideration of the out-of-country travel.
Everyone else set? David G.
Yes.
Jake?
Yes.
Dane?
Yes.
Tyler?
yes.
Christine?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Rebecca?
Yes.
Betty? Oh, sorry. Let's see, David T.
Yes.
And Esme.
Yes.
And it is unanimous.
Thank you very much. The students are going to be excited. Thank you.
Thank you. So the next on our agenda is consideration of out-of-country travel to France and Spain. Do we have a motion for this consideration?
I move to consider the out-of-country travel to France, Spain, spring of 2024.
Second.
Okay, do we have somebody here that's going to talk to us about it a little bit?
Jorgen.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Georgiani Asunção Barley, so inspiring, isn't it? So I have been an educator for 30 years, and I'm in my second year here at the high school. And before that, I was here at the middle school for 4 years. So I'm just giving you a little bit of my information so you get to know me better. In Marina Cook, we wear several hats as well because that's the way education is. So I'm also a 10th grade advisor, and I coach volleyball, and also I am now part of the curriculum committee for our district and learning a lot with that. And thank you for the opportunity. And I'm very excited about this trip proposal because it will give our students opportunities to gain new perspectives. Sometimes in the classroom is limited. And apply their knowledge outside of the classroom in real situations. So I started this conversation with Dr. McLaren, our French teacher, last year. She's on leave. But we discussed the possibility of a combined trip to a French and Spanish speaking country with our students. But soon after discussion, the leadership roles at the high school changed, and we had to focus on curriculum and instruction. So we put that aside. But this year, without my colleague, I wonder if this trip would be possible. So through a casual conversation, I have another good friend, a Spanish teacher as well, Mirelle Murch, at the Holdale High School. And I talked to her and she said, we're going to France and Spain. I said, oh, really? She said, would you like to go? Yes. But what are the planning? What is the planning behind this? So she introduced me to EF Tours, educational tours, which the company. They have several trips happening in 2024 around us, Erskine Academy, Holdale High School. And so I said, sure, let me contact Caitlin Sands. She's the consultant that is helping me and consequently Holdale High School. So, but I clarified after several emails, Zoom meetings, that I wanted to keep our students together to avoid anxiety or strengthen the friendships as well and grow more confident abroad. So Caitlin understood my points and sent me the proposal, and I shared with Michelle and Jay. So this trip is more celebration. Of course, exchange program it's awesome having the actual experience. But because of all the changes and I'm doing this with another school gives me a more confidence, basically. Okay, because the courses at the high school, they are elective. So our students choose to take a language. It's not mandatory. And this class, this junior class, they actually were my 7th graders here at the middle school. And the French student as well, because we had unified arts. So our students went through us. So I have that connection with them, and I want to celebrate this trip because many of them can work and they can also afford some of the costs. So safety is a priority, and if educational tours are liable company, additionally traveling with a neighboring school will help me grow as a teacher and a trip leader. And I have a presentation too, just to show you who they are. So the experience more 55 years, so that gave me some peace of mind because they're used to it. Thank you. That's right. Thank you, please. So that's the trip. We leave Boston and go right to Paris. So we're gonna visit the Louvre. We're gonna see the Eiffel Tower. We're gonna go there, but and then we're gonna travel to Bordeaux and spend one night. We go to Biarritz and also spend one night, and then we go to San Sebastian, then Pamplona, Zaragoza, Barcelona, and we come back home. Next slide, please. So yes, educational tours, they have a window because it's in 2024, so we cannot really have a date yet. But Mirelli Murch and I, we want to be back on Sunday, if possible, Saturday, because we're going to start teaching on Monday. So, so there is a window there because of that. So we probably miss one day of school, but we're going to confirm that closer to the trip. So that's all what is included, okay? So round trip airfare, the hotels, meals. We do not have lunch, but because you're going to be walking all day long. So we also want to try some local, bakeries, you name it. A tour director is going to be 24/7 with us, speaking English and the language at the place. Transportation through those 2 countries, expert local guides, guided sightseeing, like we're going to the Louvre, so we're going to take us there to the in the entrance to any of those places. It's all included. So what our students will need: passports, extra baggage if they are going to bring more than what is allowed in the plane, and tips and snacks, some meals. So usually we also bring some, granola bars, things like that. Thank you. Next. So YEF is the local support, okay? Safety, incident response team. I don't know if you remember, like the Senora Fry, the other teacher before me, in 2020, the border was closed. She was in Spain. The company brought her right back, put in the plane, the kids, and they came home safe. So that's a priority. Rigorous health standards and 24/7 tour director and chaperone team to support. Next, thank you. And that's also the education partner, which I like, is that there is a learning guide that the students can write down what the specific needs for them. They can get credit, high school credit, or also college credit. There is a fee of $200 for the, it's a university in New Hampshire, and including teacher, myself, if I want to take also the opportunity to take credits, I can do that. And the colleges say when they do applications for college and mention the trip, it's very powerful on there. application. So come home, change, definitely. The students will learn to embrace new challenges, expand their worldview, and discover more about themselves, and they gain necessary skills to make an impact back home. And those are the support we're gonna have. The tour consultant, Caitlin Sands, she's in Boston, a tour director at the place, both France and Spain, and also a travel support. So parents can call this travel support. The students can ask what if, or any question, they are there for them and for myself as well. And the group leader is gonna be me, representing Marina Cook High School. So eligible students for this trip is gonna be our current 9th to 11th graders that are taking French or Spanish. And our French students, I can talk about the Spanish, but our French students really are taking a lead on this because they have worked really hard with Mr. Watson that comes for level 2, and then Mary Kate that comes today is to work with them. They on the computers, I see them working. So that's the reason I did not limit it only to Spanish students, but to our French students as well. And that is definitely a celebration. And I appreciate your support. This is the price. So if you see bi-weekly, $130. Today I was listening to the kids work. Oh, I work at so place, we were talking about this. So that's the advantage of upper level classes because they can get the money and work towards that as well for 2024. And thank you. And if you have any questions, I'll be here to help as much as I can.
Thank you for that presentation. Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, David.
I noticed the discount. How do students or families apply or qualify for a discount?
The discount is through the company. They give us 24 hours to sign up, and then they have the discount. But that is also in the 14 days they can, if they cancel, they can receive the money back as well. It's all through the company.
Anyone else? Okay, are we ready to vote? So we're voting on consideration for out-of-country travel to France and Spain in the spring of 2024. I'll go there too.
David G.
Yes.
Jade left. Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Patty, oh, excuse me, Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty, David T.
Yes.
and Esme.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. So now we have an update on the Puerto Rico trip.
And that's Miss Allen, if you don't mind coming up, you can talk to the board about what we had discussed, and then we can, the board can make a motion.
Thank you for having me here again tonight. It's nice to see everybody. So it's been very exciting sharing with my 7th and 8th graders the possibilities about this trip. I had some very immediate responses. Yes, I'm ready to go. And then we had the parents involved, and of course parents are a little bit more hesitant, but I still have had a very nice response, especially because a trip like this is new to our district to offer to middle school students. We have had a good response, but because it is a domestic trip, which, Puerto Rico is a territory, so we have to have 20 students in order to allow the trip to be viable. And therefore, I have not been able to get 15 committed students to the trip. But the students who I have, I'm very close. The other night I got a new student at 10 o'clock at night. So it's still happening and it's still exciting, but In order to get a lower price, I want to wrap up the enrollment by the end of 2022 because in January, the price goes up and that makes it more difficult for everyone involved. And so therefore, I'm coming to you tonight to ask if we can extend the invitation to current sixth graders. And originally I had thought, you know, I would wanted the older students to have that first opportunity. However, when I rethinking it, I realized that in a year and a half, I will have known these kids in my classroom for 2 years. And, you know, Spanish is a year-round thing in the middle school, which that's not necessarily the case for some of the other classes, but I will know them for 2 solid years. And anyone that I'm going to go that far with, I would want to have that relationship. And I have traveled great distances with students of that age with a strong relationship. So I really do believe that I would be very comfortable bringing them, and I seek your support in allowing me to extend it to the younger students as well, so I can hopefully garner enough, enough interest to have this trip go.
So are there any questions or go ahead?
I'm not sure I'm following, sorry.
That's
So
okay.
these current sixth graders would be signing up for a trip in.
It's for 2024. So our trip
Okay,
is going.
So that's how you'll know
Yes,
them
ma'am.
for, okay, I just
Mhm.
wanted to make sure that
Yes.
I had that,
Yes.
that I understood correctly. Thanks.
Yes, I know. I don't have my presentation here again this year. That was long.
So they'll be eighth graders?
They will
and
be
so it'll
rising eighth graders.
So what about the what grade levels in high school?
Right.
Eight?
So it will be students that in 2024, they will be rising hold on. They will, yes, they will, let's go with completed. They will have completed 8th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade. There we go. So
Okay.
because this year, so 2023, my 6th graders, and then 2024, they will be finishing 7th grade, going into 8th grade.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
It's late, I understand. Me too.
Any other questions or comments? So we would need, so we're gonna need a motion to allow the current sixth graders to go on this trip.
I move that we allow the current sixth graders to go on this trip.
Is that what we wanted? Okay, just want to make sure we had that right. Any other discussion? We'll take a vote.
We'll take a vote then. David G.
Yes.
Dane,
Yes.
Tyler,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty, David T,
Yes.
and Esme.
Yeah.
So it is unanimous.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for doing this. Okay, so we have 2 discussion items for tonight. So the first one is the update on the morale initiative, and Jay's going to fill us in on that.
So November and December, obviously very busy months. So we originally had sent out an interest survey to staff to see who might be interested in participating in focus groups. We got 74 responses with only 50, I shouldn't say only, with 54 yeses. Which isn't bad, but we really need to know from our staff if yes, they would like to do it or no, they would not like to do it. So we had a lot of people that didn't respond at all. So we are actually resending it out to see if we can get a little bit more response and grow that number of 54 yeses to a slightly bigger group. We do have all of the pieces in place right now that what we're going to be doing is forming the focus groups into groups of between 4 and 6 staff members. There will be 2 leaders of the group. One will be the one asking the questions and the other one will be there to take notes. We've already put the questions together from EAB for the focus groups. And the notes will be submitted anonymously through a Google form to then be compiled going forward. So we are in the midst right now of, again, growing that number of staff who might be interested in the focus group participation. And what we will do is be forming those focus groups. And we will be setting meeting dates in the first 2 weeks of January. So we have everything ready. We're just forming the groups, and knowing where we are at this time of year, we thought it probably wouldn't be a great idea to then go to staff members right before the holidays and say, hey, come visit us and talk for 30 minutes. Everyone's very, very busy. So we said, let's wait and just do it after the holidays. So again, nobody's stressed. And again, hopefully we can get a few more people to buy in. We are meeting with EAB on the 14th, which is next Wednesday, for one of the collaborative meetings. And then we will be signing up for follow-ups with them for January, February, and March as well, because that's one of the things that group heard was that everyone was kind of struggling with the very quick timetable. So EAB is kind of heard that and backed down a little bit to be able to allow us to move at a more reasonable pace. So so that's kind of where we are right now. So we're moving forward with that. But everything's ready. We'll just form those groups and then actually do the interviews in the first 2 weeks of January is where we are right now.
Any questions? I have a question.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm just wondering, you talked about the groups and the leaders of the groups. So
Yes.
who will be leading the groups? Like if,
Yeah.
and will the groups be all from one school?
Nope.
Or will they be?
So there'll be a randomized group without getting into all the
Right.
details. They will be a randomized grouping, and it will, in those groupings, we're going to be very conscious. Most of the administrative team and some managers and directors have agreed to do this with us, including Kate Taylor, our human resource director. So what we're going to do is when we make these groups, we're going to make sure there's no, for lack of a better way to say it, power differential. So we wouldn't want, like, for example, Rick Sorois, just using Rick because he's right in front of me, I apologize, using Rick to actually run a focus group for the middle school staff, because that's kind of, that would be a difficult situation for the teachers and for Rick as well. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to mix up who's doing the interviews and how how and where they're doing the interviews as well, so that we hopefully will get people to talk as freely as possible. And again, that's why we're using an anonymous submittal form. So that way people can't say, oh, it was this person's group or this team's group that the information came from. And we didn't want to, again, have like just middle school, because then again, when you're looking at the information, you don't want to go, oh yeah, that's the middle school group, positive or negative. You wouldn't want that to happen. So we're going to try to mix it up. So we basically have broken it up into professional staff and support staff. So those are the two groups we're kind of working with. And we will have some administrators that are here tonight. We do have several administrators who would like to be part of the focus group, not as the leaders, but as participants. So I thought that was very good as well, so that we have a good cross section of people representing the district in these focus groups.
Great, thank you. I also wonder, do the staff know the process, like know how this is going to run?
Yeah.
Who's going to be there, like leading the groups, how this is going to be anonymous? I just wonder if that will get more people to say they'd be involved if they actually knew how this was gonna.
Yeah, so that's why we were resending, was because of that very reason, because we thought, yeah, they probably would like a little bit more information. We obviously can't tell them yet until we make the groups, but then when we make the groups, we will reach out and say, this is your leader of the group. Are you still interested in participating? So we'll try to make personal contact and make sure everyone feels comfortable. And if they want to back out, then that's totally fine.
So hopefully knowing how this is going to work will help get more people to say yes.
Yes,
We'll get involved.
hopefully.
So, okay, good, thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments about the morale initiative? Okay, so the next discussion on the agenda is the discussion on school resource officer. So I'll let Jay start with this.
So I just put together some bulleted points. Kathy and David T were gracious enough to meet with myself and Deputy Mason and Deputy Reed from the Kennebec Sheriff's Department. So we were able to ask some questions of what would an SRO look like for our district and what are some of the logistical pieces that we need. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through based on some of the questions we talked about last time. I encourage David and Kathy to jump in if I misspeak in any way. One of the questions that was asked was how many times police have been called to the Maranacook campus schools. When we started the discussion, Sheriff Mason said, you do know that we get calls to your school and your school district, right? And we said, yes. Would you be able to supply us that number? So he said he would follow up with us on that. I don't have the number yet, but he said he would follow up with us on that number. So an SRO would be actually employed by the Kennebec Sheriff's Department. They would work at the school during the school year, but they continue with the Sheriff's Department during vacations and summer time. Basically, anytime school is not in session, they're working. So the way that works is they actually bill us for the service that they're providing through the SRO. If we choose to move forward with this, we asked the question, can we participate in the hiring process? And they said, absolutely. They think that is key to success, is making sure that it's a good fit for not just the individual school, but the district as a whole. If another question that was asked was, well, what if it's just not working with the SRO? And Sheriff Mason was very quick to say, you guys tell us, and they're gone. And we'll either try to find another one or, we'll end the relationship. But they said, if we have any concerns, all we have to do is communicate those. And they will be taken care of immediately with that. So again, we asked kind of what budget-wise, what does this look like? And knowing we'd be basically starting from ground zero, he kind of said it would be somewhere in the neighborhood of over $100,000 as a startup, because there would be some things that have to be part of the equipment and part of, the uniform. He was quick to say, but you're not going to pay all of that. So he understands the benefit of the relationship between the schools. So he would work with us. So he said, this is just a ballpark number and it's not an exact number at this time. If we move forward, then we would be able to say, what's the hard and fast number so we can add it to our budget going forward. He did say also that there would be some sort of memorandum of understanding that we would want to put in place so that both sides know the expectations of what that SRO officer can do. And it would be not just for the SRO, but for school staff as well. Like, what are the boundaries for both people, both participants there? One of the questions that we were all kind of concerned about was, where do we kind of say is home for the SRO? And they would, the expectation would be that it would be the Maranacook campus, whether it be the middle school or high school, it would be on the Maranacook campus. But he was quick to add that in another school district, actually SID 49, which is Fairfield, they actually, the SRO actually visits the elementary schools. And I said, that's what we want. I was like, right away, that's what we want if you're going to do that. So that way we can kind of work with that. So through that discussion, one of the other things that was really important that I think as a board we need to define is, what are our goals for the SRO? Why do we want the SRO, so that we can articulate that clearly? And what are our expectations for that SRO? And I know we've talked about many different things along the way, but one thing that Sheriff Mason talked about that really kind of fit what happens in our district, it's really about building relationships with students. And it's not just at-risk students. I've heard Sean Roderick talk about that. Sometimes people connect differently with different resources. And this would be that opportunity to build those relationships and be preventative. That was something that he stressed as well, is really the SRO is there to be preventative. And they really want to be supportive of the schools, but of course they can do other things as well that include, like violence prevention. But they can also do safety education, help with our safety plans within the school district as well, like as a district, but also individual schools, checking our facilities, making sure that our protocols are being followed around doors and use of badges and keys and, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things that the SRO can do as part of their time here with us. So that was the gist of the conversation. Kathy, David, do you guys want to add anything to that before I talk about kind of the next step?
The only thing that I wanted to add is that they were very clear when we were talking to them that it was important to them what our reasons for wanting this, what our goals are, what our expectations are. And then they would really build what they do based on what we want and what we need.
And we stressed to them that we weren't looking for this to start immediately. It would be something that we would be probably looking to start in the fall, the next school year, the fall. But if we are going to proceed forward, and we all talked about that, was the work, the pre-work that needs to be done with students, staff, and our communities around bringing an SRO into the school district. So it was definitely a very productive conversation. One of the things that we asked if they could do, and we thought we'd bring it to the full board, is to invite Deputy Day, who is the SRO in SAD 49, which is Fairfield, Lawrence High School. Sheriff Mason said that he could arrange to have him come to talk about like kind of what he does on a daily basis with the board and maybe answer a few of you guys' questions that we haven't gotten addressed at this point as well. So we could do it as early as one of the January meetings if that's what you guys would like to do. So that was the last piece I kind of wanted to throw out there, that if you guys want to move forward, but would like to talk to an actual SRO, more than willing to do that. Oh, one other thing that I did forget in my notes and I just thought of was they do special trainings as well. So it's not like they just get thrown into, hey, you're an SRO, go to school. They actually get training that's specific to all age groups and working with students across all age groups. So that is something that they have to do in order to be certified as an SRO. I think that was the last thing I forgot about that. So wanted to make
That's
sure.
important.
Yeah.
And that specifically goes to something you had brought up in our last meeting, Kathy, is, I think it was you, that the training for SROs has changed and improved significantly over the years. I think that talking with them, plus the research and the links that we've been given by Dane and others, emphasized our need that if we are going to proceed with it, or as we investigate proceeding with it, we do need to have a very strong focus on what we're expecting, what we're allowing them to do. Because from both sides, and including from the deputies, the question of arrests and of students was a very definite part of the SRO. And in evaluating who is the SRO and the training they've had, the deputies commented, as you get the wrong person in there, you'll have 10 arrests the first week or the first day, or something like that. I don't think any of us want that for our district. And we wouldn't necessarily have that at all, because they and we would be evaluating the people in the program very carefully. But both that makes me want to proceed carefully with this because it is a very serious thing. We've heard at the last meeting, some very positive and good reports of interactions and relationships built by SROs with students, with board members, with others. And that's very positive. We did not hear from any of the challenged or special needs students or people of their relationships with SROs. And feedback from the national community says that those relationships are not always positive and that they are not always helpful to keeping students safe. And so for me, that's a very important part of, I've had great interactions with officers. I've never had an SRO, but, and that's great. But I'm white, fairly balanced, depending on who you talk to, and have never had significant issues with the law or with things that bring the law into my life. For the most part, anyway. And so we need to be very careful about bringing an officer into the school as an employee, as part of the school. More interactions, more positive education, building relationships, that's great. But are all those requiring someone be on site all the time? We don't bring in lawyers or corrections officers or whatever else as an employee into the schools to help students do better with them, unless it's with a specific class. So I'm not against an SRO, but I am not sure yet that that's what we should be doing. And part of that is the question of why we want them. If we want them because of the national security issues in so many places and schools, I'm not so sure the evidence is that an SRO is the way to solve that or will have a huge effect on that. For the relationships, for getting positive relationships between our students, even our staff and ourselves with officers is a very positive thing. But why are we bringing a person, an SRO into the schools now? Timing wise makes it look like we're bringing them in because of school security in those ways, and that the relationships and so forth are an afterthought, as important as they are, to me, more important. And I'll stop. You've heard enough of me.
So I do want to just add to something that you said. There is no research that I've seen or anywhere that says having a school resource officer stops school shootings. So we know, I mean, that there's nothing that says that that's reason that we want that. So I just want to put that out there. I haven't seen it anywhere. And I've actually seen I've done some reading that says, you know, there isn't any research that supports that. So anybody else?
So are we asking questions now about, okay, so I do have a couple questions if I can, okay, thanks. First of all, thanks for the information and for meeting with the sheriff's office. So one of the questions I have is, would we know prior to putting a line into the budget what the cost would be? Can we use that before we decide that this is something we want to do, that information about cost?
Yes, yeah,
100,000's a lot.
right,
Yeah,
right.
obviously, yeah.
And that was just the ballpark figure again. So it could be a little higher, it could be a little lower.
Right.
I'm not exactly sure, but Obviously, from their perspective, they were thinking, well, if you're gonna move forward, then we'll give you an actual quote. If you're not gonna move forward, then.
Yeah, here's the
Yeah,
ballpark.
yeah,
Okay,
here's the
okay.
ballpark right
Thanks. I figured that was true. So, if when we are developing the MOU, some information was shared with us by a community member that included, a template that was available from, the National Center for Judicial. I can't remember the acronym.
Yeah.
But you know, something, we would have a guide for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, the leading one right now is Strategies for Youth.
Yeah, okay.
.org. Yeah, they're .org. So yeah, so that's the information I had gotten this summer. And if we're gonna move forward, I think these, we would want to reach out to, I have a contact from a person that's there that could help us move this forward, especially on the communication part with like, what's a checklist for, and then what do parents, communities and schools need to know about it as well. So this is just a template, but I would reach out and we would get the experts involved to help us.
Okay.
with
Yeah.
that.
Thank you. Would there be any rule, and this could be completely off the wall, I don't know if this ever happens in school staffing, but would there be any feedback from students, staff, or the community before we decide whether to move forward?
Right. I think that's an important piece. That's
Actually,
what we
that's what, I was gonna say that before we finish the discussion. I think it's really important that we survey the community,
Okay.
the staff, and the students
Awesome.
before we really get much further.
Okay.
Just to make
Agreed.
sure that we're doing what the community, staff, and students want us to do.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's important to me too. That's great. And then the training, I read quite a bit about SRO training to prepare for this discussion. And I did see that in Maine, there was a lot of variance among the level of training. I don't know, specific to this sheriff's department, it sounds like it's mandatory for them, or
I don't know if it's mandatory. I wouldn't
Okay.
use that
No,
word. I didn't hear that word.
okay.
Just
But
the-
would we have a role in determining making our choice for the person, like, okay, what was the training? Because like David was saying, training on working with students with not just with mental health disabilities and diagnoses and working with children in particular, I think would be really important. Okay. So we would consider that.
Absolutely.
The arrest issue. So students being arrested by the school resource officer that they're developing relationships with would be concerning to me. Would that be part of their role?
We would define that. One of the things that they stressed to us was that discipline is handled by the building administrators. It's not the SRO's job to discipline the students. And this is me theorizing a little bit, so I apologize. But in that discussion, what I got from that was they don't want to step in unless it's absolutely necessary. And if it's going to rise to a level where there would be an arrest of some kind that would be happening, that would be something that would be outside the norm and would cause us to want to really, really make sure parents are aware of what's going on. And that, yeah, so it's a very complicated issue, and I don't want to pretend to speak for them because I'm reading into what he said between the lines. So, but it sounds to me like that would be something that they would only do in rare, extreme safety emergencies.
And what I gained from the conversation and from my reading and research is that if the administrators feel that an incident is at the level that they would have to call the police anyway, whether we had SRO or not, then that might be the same level, but it wouldn't be in that level. I think about how many times I had to do it, which is quite a few, but you know, that, it wouldn't be something that they're out looking for somebody to arrest or somebody that's doing, and we wouldn't want that. You know, and
No,
that
we-
we made, so I think
we
that,
wouldn't,
that's how
yeah.
I look at it, you know, it'd be, if it's at the level where the administrators feel they have to call the police, then
Okay.
that would be the same level.
And we, okay, and, right, because we would want to be careful that it wouldn't be like, well, this is really difficult to deal with. And since this
Right, yeah.
person's here anyway, right.
Yeah.
And I was wondering that if, you know, because the positive of building those relationships that could be eroded if there are arrests by that same person. And I know administrators have to meet out discipline quite a bit and you repair relationships with kids and still want to build trust. And I know that can happen, but still, I think that would be a factor. And I wondered if there would ever be, probably not just because of the amount of resources, but we wouldn't be able to call another officer to come to actually do that arrest based on the.
Actually, it would depend on the situation, and if the SRO felt that that was something that needed to happen, I'm sure that, but the other reason is, I mean, the average response time for us, because of where we are, is, you know, 20 to 30 minutes, so.
Right, and that is.
But I think that would absolutely be an option. I think we just have to look at all those things that we need for our district, for our
Right.
school, if that's what we want to do.
Okay, I just have a couple more questions. Thanks so much for answering them. So you, the sheriff's office said that there were times that the police department was called to the school, but we're not sure the
The
number.
exact number.
And, we must know why that's happening.
Yes, usually my office is notified if there is an emergency situation going on, my office is notified. But there are situations that do happen, like football games and other things, with dances and things like that.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if they included those or didn't, so we'll have to talk to them about that.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think could be really beneficial, I don't know, but it seems to me that gun safety education in schools, in elementary schools, even maybe, I mean, that guns are a fact of life and they're very, very, very dangerous, obviously. And so some education on the safe use and handling of guns, I think might be something that I would want available to students. Thanks for answering the questions. Appreciate it.
On the SROs arresting, I think that would be a question we need to ask the sheriff's department, what authority they have. Because we can imagine that if the principals decide that it's at that level, the SRO will arrest them. But my impression was more that from reading and from that they have the authority to decide on their own. And we may be aware of something and ask them to help us by stepping in, but that it is not our place to tell them, no, not yet.
You would think. You would
No,
think that
that's-
would be true.
That is correct. If they have, it's discretion, but if they have to make the arrest, that you will not tell them that they will not make that arrest. And just on that topic, I talk to Deputy Day all the time. He's made one arrest his entire SRO career. So coming into the school and making an arrest is not what they want to do. It's not what they do. It's in their title. They're a resource. They are there for the students, there for admin. He says a lot. I sent you what he said pretty much. His door is open. He's got more people coming in, crying on his shoulder, coming in to talk to him. Call him at all hours of the night. He is becoming essentially, not, I wouldn't say a friend, but there's a very open dialogue with him and SROs, I guess, amongst the area. Like Kathy said, the average response time, depending on where the local law enforcement are, is greater than 15 minutes. So the fact that you have somebody here already to not necessarily stop it, but they will definitely engage, and you want that. I'll let Tyler ask any questions.
Any other questions or comments from the board? So we do have a citizen that would like to comment.
Tyler has his hand
Oh,
up.
sorry. Tyler, didn't see you, sorry.
No, you're fine. I have a lot of concerns with this. In general, I think I'm still against it. I don't, I guess my big question is we talk a lot about the relationships, but at the end of the day, we're asking to bring a police officer into our schools. And we talk a lot about the response time. And if they're based at Maranacook, at the central campus, we're still looking at a delayed response time to Mount Vernon, to Wayne, to Manchester, not necessarily really to Reedfield Elementary School, but at the 3 peripheral buildings, we still have that delayed response time. And at $100,000 ballparking it, is that gain in relationship worth $100,000? I don't, and especially where we're not trying to have them be involved in discipline, which is my biggest objection. Is I don't want them involved in discipline at all, because I don't think students, especially under the age of 17, should be without, besides, heinous crimes, be referred to the criminal justice system. I've still yet to be convinced of the need to spend $100,000 where we're ballparking this for building relationships when we can invite police officers in a contextualized classroom setting versus having them be an omnipresent entity within our buildings. And that's kind of been my whole concern throughout this whole process is why do we feel the need to have an omnipresent, essentially a cop presence in our buildings at all time, when the security concern, there's no research to back it up. We don't want to use them for discipline, and there's better alternatives for building those relationships within the context of a learning environment, which we're already doing. In my time at Maranacook, we always had cops coming in to talk about their job, to talk about what they do. I can remember Ethan Buck coming into my ethics class to talk about, the ethical challenge of being a game warden, which is a little bit different, but it's the same concept. I think if we want to build those relationships, I think doing it through our classroom and through classroom experiences, I think it's a lot better. I think there's no question on discipline. And yes, we have to deal with that delayed response time. But even in the situations where schools have had SROs in those emergency situations, there's no evidence to see that they've de-escalated. And there's research to show that schools with SROs have increased violence within them. And I think that's the exact opposite of what we want. So I think, Kathy and Jay, as we go along, I want to hear more, to that line of what that relationship looks like and what is the value add to our students of spending that money.
Thank you, Tyler. Anyone else on the board have any comments or questions?
Kathy, I just want to be clear that I would love to have, is it Officer Day come to talk about that to us? I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think we're going to arrange that.
I don't know where the 100,000. I don't know. It's just a ballpark from him, but everyone I've talked to, even from the sheriff's office, was not even close to that. However, $100,000 on my kid's head, I'm sure I'll pay that. So when you talk about price, Tyler, that's where it comes from. There's no price tag on a child's safety, so that's where I stand.
To just add to that, that gets back to me to the goals for, right. So is it safety? Is it relationships? If it's safety and there's documented research that tells us this makes your school safer, that $100,000 looks a lot different to me than if it is our goal is relationship building and we are choosing to use a school resource officer in that capacity rather than a school psychologist or a social worker or another professional.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for waiting, being so patient.
I'm Mary Ann Libby from Mount Vernon, and I'm the one who sent you all the email with all those articles and things. I've been fighting against SRO for quite a few years now. It keeps popping up. I'm very much on board with what Tyler was talking with us about. We just heard tonight about Mount Vernon's kindness project. And that didn't require somebody like that. That required just staff. Restorative justice would help if we would actually take that seriously and do something with that. I know when they first brought up SROs a number of years ago, they were saying somewhere around 80,000 or 90, something like that. You could hire a couple of ed techs easily for that, with them having a bit of training about relationships, although ed techs, it's all about relationships in all of the schools. Or you could hire a social worker who understands how to take down any kind of messy situation that's going on. And none of those people, a couple of ed techs or a social worker, none of those would have a gun. None of those would have handcuffs. Why do we go back to that old culture of, yeah, sure, it's all about relationships, but I'm going to have a gun. I also know statistically that even the SROs who, yeah, they say it's all about the relationship and that kind of thing, but statistically, that doesn't hold up when the kid is Black or when the kid is autistic. I know of the very few times I've been out in public where there are police or security officers, and my daughters would be wearing the exact same clothes, moving the exact same way. The one daughter that they would follow would be my Black daughter. They didn't pay a bit of attention to the white kid, to the white daughters. And it's not because they're mean people, it's because they don't see what their own issues are within their lives. Hire a social worker, hire a couple of ed techs. We used to have an ed tech a million years ago whose job was just to be in the high school all day long and maybe check the parking lots now and then. It would be cheaper, and it would also involve deep relationships with the kids. I don't know if anybody's doing in-house suspension anymore. I used to do that when I worked at the high school. And you can have powerful relationships with those kids, amazing conversations that change your life as well as theirs. And I never had to have a gun or handcuffs or a taser or anything like that that says, yeah, I'm here and I want to be friendly with you, but I have a gun. How do I trust that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. So anybody else have any questions or comments before we talk about where we want to go next with this?
I do.
Go ahead.
I think we need to keep in mind that this is not about relationships. The purpose of this is for safety for all kids. That's what the purpose of an SRO is. And the benefit of having a safety person or a resource is they build that relationship with that person. That's what it's about. Having a weapon in a school with a well-trained individual to mitigate such heinous acts at a split second, you want that. You don't want to wait 20, 30 minutes to have them add up and add up and add up. You want that person here on site to instantly act. And if that day comes and there's not someone here on site and I'm coming, the school will be liable. I'll tell you that. You want someone here. The world is changing. Okay, these are well-trained individuals. This is something you need to look at. It's not relationships. It's safety, and the benefit from it is relationships. Get Deputy Day in here. They love him over there. He's a great guy. Like he said, and the sheriff has said, the school board interviews people. They interview the SROs to see if they're a good fit. That's important. Remember this, please. Remember this conversation.
So I just want to add to that, I do think that it's about safety. And I also think that building relationships can increase the feeling of safety for everybody around. So Yeah, I just know what happened, and Lieutenant
Read.
explained to us what happened when there were those hoax calls that went all around how when they all went to Gardner High School, there was like 30 police officers, and when they got there, the change in the demeanor of all the kids, just everybody seemed to really calm down because they felt a lot safer once the police presence was there. So I think we need to look at all the sides, all the research, and decide based on what our community wants and make it really clear what that is, and then take the next step. So I think in my feeling is that we need to hear from the community, the staff, and the students about, and whether that's through a survey or, and, parents, of course, when I say community and parents, or, how we want to do that. But I think it's important to collect that information so that we have more voices heard.
I can, oh, go ahead.
So I just want to say that a recent training on threat assessment that I have completed is just indicates the very, very, I think, surprising unlikelihood that there would be a shooter in a school. Those are high profile things that we hear about. So people think that is a risk, and I'm certainly not saying it's not a risk. But the statistics show that is quite unlikely. And so before we, and again, so that period. And I do think that if the goal, if the purpose of an SRO is simply safety and that's it, and then a side benefit of that is relationships, then we really do need to establish our goals and take a look at where I understand Tyler's point, safety for which school, the time for a call to Wayne or to Mount Vernon is, if the person is stationed here, it is kind of the same. So I am maintaining
That is incorrect.
Pardon?
That is incorrect.
I'm just going
Go
to
ahead,
finish
go ahead.
what I'm
Go ahead,
saying,
Christine.
and then you can share the
Yeah,
incorrectness.
I'll share the experience.
Go ahead, Christine.
I am maintaining an open mind. I've read all the information that has been presented to me. I want to maintain an open mind on this. And I think that we need to speak from knowledge about what the community wants, knowledge about what the research says, and knowledge about what we could create, and whether that meets our goals. So I'm looking forward to meeting Officer Day and hearing more from community members about it. Continuing to learn. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave?
On that note, if you're in Manchester or Augusta responding to Wayne, think about the time. If you're in Reedfield responding to Wayne, think about the time. It's a big difference. Big difference. I've done it. Did it for 6 years.
So
I responded all over the state.
Yeah. So then that should be part of the information that we evaluate in an objective, non-emotional manner. We should just have all of that information.
Well, you take that from experiences that people have who have done the job. That's
Okay,
that's how you take
so
that.
are we ready to talk about our next steps?
Yeah, we need to move forward with this.
So what do you start to say
I was
something? Go
gonna
ahead.
say I could draft up some survey questions to share with the board. And then we can figure out when you'd like that survey to go out, because we can draft it appropriate for like a student, a staff, and a community. So that way we have we can kind of look at the information that way. But we can, like, if we draft the questions, then I think we can make sure everyone's good with those. Then we can figure out, okay, when are we sending them out and all that kind of stuff. That could be something that we work on before the next board meeting in January. And then if you guys, it sounds like, and I don't mean to speak for everyone, it sounds like a discussion or inviting Deputy Day to come and talk about his experiences would be a good thing. So again, if that's something the board would like, I can make arrangements for what we have 2 meetings in January, and we can figure out which meeting would be most appropriate for him to attend.
So is that something that we want to do? I see. It's not.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, so we'll do that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you for the discussion. Thank you, Mary Ann, for your input. We do appreciate it. So now I need a motion.
That's all right. Motion.
Motion to go into executive
Sorry.
session.
Second.
Yeah. So
Okay, so very
So
quickly,
after-
roll call vote.
do the roll
David,
call.
David G.
Yes.
Dane.
Yes.
Sorry. Tyler,
Yes.
Christine.
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Rebecca,
Yes.
Betty. David Twitchell,
Yes.
and Esme, I know. It's gonna say yes, thank you.
Are we going in a different room?
Yeah,
Looking at our norms, it seems that we did pretty well. Everyone got to speak and we shared some airtime. We agreed to disagree. We were pretty positive with each other. Dane interrupted once, but you could work on that for the next time. Other than that, I think we did pretty good.
Great. Thank you for doing that, Rebecca. Do I have a motion to adjourn? All those in favor? We can raise our hand on this one. Adjourned.